Hi, I'm Randy from Moreland EDC. It's a little bit windy here today, so hopefully the wind noise isn't too much of a distraction now. It's just crazy. Just before Christmas, I'd like to talk about mental health. Just before Christmas, I was talking about mental health and the festive period, and 6 or 7 weeks later, having lost my dad on New Year's Day, I'd be talking about mental health and grief. I think before I start, it's important to say, I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm not a trained psychiatrist or anything like that. I'm just a guy that had some debilitating mental health issues and struggles some years back that's still trying to struggle with those, but really all I'm trying to do is help to get people talking. And also, if you relate with anything that I've said today or anything that you might hear today, hopefully it's something that will give you some comfort that other people are having these struggles out there, and that you're not alone in the world. Man, grief is an absolute. It's a bitch. It really is. I don't think I've coped well this time, but I've noticed some differences between when my mum passed and when my dad passed. So when my mum passed about 13 years ago, I certainly wasn't on venlafaxine. I wasn't on any sort of antidepressants. I went through, I can't remember what there's like supposedly 6 or 7 phases of grief. I went through them all. I felt kind of naturally. I did stick on anger though. I was probably angry for a good 6 months, but it was just a general malaise kind of anger at life. And yeah, I had a very, very short fuse. But as I say, I wasn't on any sort of drugs or anything back then. I say drugs, I mean antidepressants rather than like hard illegal drugs. Whereas this time, the anger phase really hit me. Having been, and again, I don't know if there is a correlation between being on the antidepressants or not, or every death or every kind of period of grieving is completely different. The anger phase really, really hit me bad, maybe for a week, just over a week probably. And I mean intense anger, absolute loathing, intense, just disgust towards my dad. And I know I definitely said some nasty things which really kind of shocked me. I've always been open and truthful with my wife, and it's something that I definitely recommend if you're having any sort of struggles, is keeping an open dialogue with somebody that you can trust and that you want to talk to. I spoke to my wife quite a lot about the things that were going on in my head, and as much as possible, even though my wife didn't appreciate some of the things that I told her, more the fact that, thoughts of self-harm. I don't understand the human brain. I don't understand why the human brain says, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling anger, how can you overcome this? You should boil a kettle and pour it over your hand. I don't. They were the thoughts that I was getting for a good couple of days, and I don't know. Luckily, as I was in a good enough place in my own head that I could say to myself, this is a strange feeling, why am I getting these? But I guess what I'm trying to say is to try and understand what's going on in your head and be able to articulate that. Whether it's you say it to yourself, whether you write it down, whether you join a forum, something, there's a lot of support out there. There's a lot of mental health support out there, and there's a lot of grief support out there as well. Some forums you don't even need to take any sort of active part in. You can just see what other people are putting, so that you can go, I recognise that in myself. Okay, maybe this is part of this. It's not a normal behaviour for me, as though there is like an average of what you should or what you generally are, and this is something that is outside the boundaries of that average. But the anger phase for me, it was incredibly intense. I've never known so much anger. Maybe it was betrayal, even though I certainly wasn't betrayed by my dad at all. Yeah, very bizarre, but something to make sure that you look out for. Now, as far as support, I've always said to actively seek out support. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, there's so many different forms of that. For me, my easiest thing has always been to talk to my wife about it. As I say, I've had to tell her some very hard things that she wanted to know, but necessarily didn't want to hear, because they're not nice things to hear. As far as healthcare professionals here in the UK, you can talk to the NHS. Wherever you are in the world, hopefully you should be able to contact a healthcare professional and be able to get some support as far as mental health needs, and also for grieving needs as well. If you went to your GP, they'll be able to give you some advice or some groups that you can join to help you with your grief. Even if you wanted to go as far as talking to your employer, a lot of large companies with a decent HR department will either be able to give you some support in that, or they'll be able to recommend you on to somebody that will be able to give you some advice towards grieving and how to help some of the telltale signs that you might be heading down a certain path. I think not talking about things and internalising things certainly points you towards that path, like an accumulating snowball rolling down a hill. They get ingrained, and then that leads to something else, and then that leads to other thoughts. Again, as I say, I'm certainly not a trained psychiatrist. I'm just a person that has had these issues. And these issues really have been this close as well. As I say, my dad passed away on New Year's Day. It's now it's the 10th or the 11th? It's the 12th. I've lost track of days. But anyway, there is support out there, and talking about things is key. Even if you just want to put something down in the comments below, if you've had similar to this, so that people can read those and they can feel assured that they're not just going through this thing alone, that people have had similar things. If you've had some issues where you've noticed that when you weren't on medication, but then having a similar time on medication, you've noticed that the grief has been dramatically different, I'd certainly like to read that. I don't know if it is just every death or every grief process is completely different, or whether maybe there is kind of a match-up between whether you're on some antidepressants or not. Or even if you just want to chat, no judging. I think that's important. One is, yes, everybody should talk about it, and the second one is that no one will hopefully ever judge you. I certainly, and I'd like to believe the community that I've created here down in the comments, and nobody will ever judge you either. So yes, I hope that helped. I hope there's something that you've recognised today, something that you've thought, yes, I see that, I understand that, I'm feeling similar. Or unfortunately, if you know that you've got somebody that's close to passing away, that maybe it's something that you can keep a mind of, just in case this does come up. And yes, talking is the key to all of this, getting something off your chest. And again, whether it's actually talking to somebody, whether it's writing that down, send somebody an email. My mum's been dead for, she's not been here for, what is it now, 13, 14 years. I still email her regularly just to talk about different things. She's not very good at emailing back, unfortunately, but, you know. So yes, I hope you had a good New Year. I hope you had a great Christmas, and I'm really looking to 2023. It's going to be a great year. It didn't start out the best, but I know my dad would want me to ooh, it's a bit windy, but I know my dad would want me to carry on and have a great year. And in the spirit of the Moorlander, I want everybody to stay safe, stay Moorlander, and stay EDC.